In this video, we will be discussing about some logical equivalences in discrete structures. So first of all, we will check about tautology. Tautology क्या होता है? मेरे पास कुछ प्रपोजिशंस हैं, उसके कंपाउंड्स हैं, राइट? अगर मेरे उस कंपाउंड प्रपोजिशन के सारे वैल्यूज ट्रू आ गए तो वी विल डिक्लेयर दिस एज tautology, राइट? For example, let's take an example. I have to check tautology for P or Q implies P, V. P implies to P or Q. P and Q implies to P. P implies to P or Q. C. Negation of P implies to P implies to Q. And D. P and Q implies to P implies to Q. Right. So first we will draw table of P, Q, right? Negation of P and Q implies to P, right? Sorry, P and Q, and then P and Q implies to P, right? And then P implies to P or Q, then negation of P implies to P implies to Q, right? Then P implies to Q, P and Q implies to P implies to Q, and then P or Q. I will make rows accordingly, right? Now we will see true, true, false, false, true, false, true, false. Negation will give me false, false, true, true, right? Now P and Q both should be true. This is false, false, false. P or Q, any one can be true. So this will be true, true, and this false, right? Now P and Q implies to P. True, 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 right? So this is my tautology, right? Then P implies to P or Q. So P implies to P or Q, true. This also true. This also true. This also true. So this is also my tautology. Negation of P implies to P implies to Q. So negation of P implies to P implies to Q. Where is P implies to Q? That will be true, true, false. Sorry, this will be false. This will be true. This is true, right? So this will be true, 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 also true. That means this is also tautology, right? Then P and Q implies to P implies to Q. So true, this is also true, this is also true, and this is also true, right? So this is also my tautology. So by doing this, we check tautology of a given compound of propositions, right? Now we will be discussing about some logical equivalences. Logical equivalences. So P implies Q is logically equivalent to negation of P or Q, right? So how to memorize this, or how to see the core logic behind it? It simply means if I have event P, suppose I study, this implies I will pass Q. Now, if I want to study, suppose I don't study, then I will not pass. So either I will not study or I will pass. Either I will pass or I will not study. This is also true. By this you can remember this, and then we will be discussing some more. Right. I am erasing this. Right. So next one is P implies Q equivalence to negation of Q implies negation of P. So how to remember this? Suppose I say dog, I get a dog. I can say this is a dog, this is an animal also. Now, if something is not animal, we can't say that is dog. This will imply not dog. So by this you can remember this. Next one is P or Q equivalence to negation of P implies Q. So simply what I did, in this I applied both sides negation, right? Let me see. I simply did negation of P or Q, right? And then accordingly, this is what I did, right? I simply what I did was I simply applied here negation, right, and here negation on P. So this is what I got, right? This and this is the same thing. Now P and Q equivalence to negation of P to negation of Q. So what happened here is I have wrote this as P negation of Q, right? P and negation of Q, right? Now if I apply negation to both, P, here I apply here I apply negation on both sides, right? Then I will get here negation of Q and negation of P, that will be P ultimately, right? Now some more are P implies Q and P implies R will give P implies Q and R. So this can be derived as the derivation of this can be done as negation of P or Q and negation of P or R will give me negation of P or Q and R, right? Then it can give me whole negation I will apply, then it will give me P, right? Implies Q and R, right? Okay. Hmm. Now I have P implies R and Q implies R. This is written as P or Q implies R. How? Simply this I can write it as negation of P or R and negation of Q or R, right? This can be written as negation of P and negation of Q or R, right? This will be written as negation of P and P or Q and R, right? This is written as P or Q implies R, okay, right? And then next one is I am going to again erase this. Right, now I have P implies R or P implies R. Sorry, Q implies R. Then I will have P and Q implies R. So you have to remember these formulas, right? Now, what is argument? Argument is in propositional logic is a sequence of propositions. Final proposition in argument is conclusion and all other propositions in arguments that are assumed to be true are premises. Now argument is valid if conclusion is true. So if conclusion is true, my argument will be valid, right? Now there are some premises P1, P2, Pn and conclusion Q, last proposition. So if all true, then my argument will be valid. So this can be also represented as P1 and P2 and Pn implies Q. This whole thing written in a single line. And if all columns, all rows will be true, then my argument is valid, right? Now we will be discussing about this one, right? What does it significantly mean? If I exercise, okay, I will lose weight, right? just a second. Okay, and if I exercise, एक second, okay, this is the example of this one. So if where have I written this? P implies Q, Q implies R. Okay, let's write it again. P implies R and Q implies R. This means P or Q implies R, right? Okay. This means if it's rain, if I exercise, that is P. Right. And I lose weight, and if I exercise, I will feel better. And I think this is the another example I have wrote. Okay, now I have to check if suppose there is a question, I am removing this board. I have a question that check argument